Gary, it's all yours.
What a good-looking group, you know. I'm not going to use the microphone. I got to be a moving target here. Yeah, I'm going to answer some of your questions, or try to anyway, and tell you what's going on here, tell you what you've got to look at here, what's going on with the museum. I'll tell you a little bit about the flying boat, how we got it, what's it doing here, and so forth. Last week I got a phone call from the Discovery Channel in New York, and a young man was doing some research on a program they're doing that they've already filmed, and he wanted to do some follow-up research on the flying boat, and he says, "Can I ask you some questions?" I said, "Shoot." He says, "We're doing a program about the 10 greatest disasters of the 20th century." He said, whoa, slow down here. If you're going to include the flying boat in that, you're going to piss some people off. I said, "It wasn't a disaster." And he says, "Well, haven't you heard that the flying boat is equivalent to the Edsel of aviation?" I said, "Haven't you heard the flying boat is equivalent to walking on the moon in 1942? He was determined to find something negative in this. And I tried to show him what spun out of this program, like the space program, the positive things. First of all, Henry Kaiser had the contract to build 3 of these flying boats from design to flight in 24 months. He went to Roosevelt with the idea that he could build 5,000 Martin Mars troop transport for the war effort. They tried to discourage him, they tried to talk him out of this, but he had such a good track record with war contracts. You know, he was into cement. He built Hoover Dam, Shasta Dam, Cooley Dam. He built cars. He was building troop ships, or what did they call them? Liberty ships. Yes, right over here on the Columbia River. He had such a good track record, they couldn't exactly deny him, so they offered him a cookie to get rid of him. They said, "Okay, look, build us a couple of prototype troop transports, but you got to do it from design to flight in 24 months. He says, "I can do that." And he said, "Well, that's not all. It's got to fly 3,000 miles in ground effect." He says, "I can do that. But one of them's got to carry 750 men, or 450 stretchers, or 2 30-ton Sherman tanks." He said, "I can do that." And he said, "We're not done. You can't use any strategic personnel. You can't rob people from Boeing and Fairchild and Lockheed." He said, "Okay, that's fine." And then the final thing that they thought would kill the project says, "You can't have any aluminum or steel. Got to build it out of non-strategic materials." He says, "I can do it." So they gave him the $18 million contract. What he had in his hip pocket is he knew that Howard Hughes had designed a flying cruise ship in the mid-30s made of bonded veneers. This cruise ship was to include a small swimming pool. I don't know why the hell you'd want a swimming pool on board an airplane, but it was a fantasy aircraft. He got Hughes involved in it, and that's where the HK-1 came from. Hughes Kaiser design number 1. Well, they get started, and these two guys don't get along at all. Hughes is quiet and introspective and an intellectual approach to aviation, and Henry Kaiser, if you remember the picture, he was short and round and rather flamboyant, so he dropped out of the picture altogether, and it's all Hughes' project. They changed the name again. Now it's the H-4 Hercules. He's a perfectionist. Every piece has to be handmade, hand-molded, of laminated birch veneer. There's virtually no spruce in it. Some of you already knew that. This is the thickness of the skin on the flying boat. And if you got real good eyes, you can see it's about 6 laminations laid back and forth at 90 degrees like carbon fiber. There are engineers that will prove to you that laminated veneers are stronger and lighter than aluminum. And there's a bonus: no rivets. Rivets cause extra weight, extra parasitic drag in the water and in the air. It was not a new concept, and it certainly wasn't Hughes' concept. Laminated veneer aircraft go back to as early as the mid-1900s, 1915. The Langley Twin was all a birch veneer aircraft. PT-19s, tin aircraft, are made out of veneers. And the epoxy they bonded it with was called phenyl formaldehyde epoxy, and it was cooked in an autoclave for 3 or 4 hours to kick it off. They had no catalyst, like the epoxy that you get in this hardware store today. That was the big holdup. You had to cook every piece. Every piece had to be cooked in an autoclave. It took forever. And Hughes kept changing the design, kept improving the design, kept tearing up components. 5 years goes by, it's 1947, the war is over with, there's no need for this transport, and Congress wants to fry in it. Actually, it was a Senator Brewster that was trying to launch himself into the White House by trying to make a monkey out of it, trying to make a Watergate kind of a situation out of the Spruce Goose. They accused him of profiteering, even though he threw $7 million of his own money at it. They called it a flying lumberyard. They hurt his feelings. And during a congressional hearing recess at the end of October 1947, he went out to California with his hurt feelings, put 2,000 gallons of fuel in the thing, fired it up, and made a couple of high-speed runs. He had an FAA man on board with taxi waivers only. He booted the press off and spent 45 minutes to an hour staging photographers on the waterfront of Long Beach. One clue. Another clue is he went back on board and lowered the flaps to 15 degrees. A definite move to fly this thing. Fired it back up and pointed it into the wind at roughly 70 knots. This 200-ton, 440,000-pound aircraft got airborne. It's hard to judge how high, maybe 80 feet, 90 feet in the air, maybe a mile, maybe a minute. He put it back on the water, taxied it back to its enclosure, feeling vindicated. He changed some things on the flight deck. He built a wraparound cockpit. He wouldn't allow a licensed pilot on board because he didn't want anyone to take credit for assisting him. He put in a third hydraulic backup system run by car batteries. He reinforced the tail. The wingtips like 17 feet. They had to reinforce the wing. He changed all 8 engines. That's a cutaway of the Pratt & Whitney 4360 over there. You got a chance to look at it a little later. In 1942, that was rated at 3,000 horsepower. By 1947, that same engine could be rated at 3,300 horsepower, so he changed them all out. That's what we have today in canisters, the engines that never flew. The originals are long gone. They went to places like Embry-Riddle and Spartan School of Aviation, and you wouldn't be able to identify them. And then he proceeded to spend $1 million a year for 33 years to keep it flight ready. He had a phone call and never went back and looked at it. Felt vindicated and put it aside. He had lots of other passions. That DX-11 high altitude spy plane that he built. The H-1 racer up there that set a record in the mid-30s from LA to New York in 7.5 hours. That record, that speed record of 325 miles an hour held for about 3 years. It was the first retractable aircraft. It had a retractable steerable tail wheel. First butted aluminum flush riveted aircraft. He was the first one to experiment with straight back exhaust that gave it a few more pounds of thrust. It had a very unique flap system that when you lowered the flaps, it lowered the ailerons to 15 degrees and you had flaperons at low speed. Very clever airplane. When Hughes passed away, it was his wish that the flying boat be dismantled and given to museums around the world, and there was quickly a committee put together to snuff this. But they didn't own it. The GSA, the government, owned the title to the flying boat. Part of his will was to give the flight deck to the Smithsonian. They didn't want it. They didn't have any room for it. They had no interest in it. And they said, but we'll give you fee title to it if you'll trade us the H-1 racer. That's what they did want. And those of you that have been back at the Smithsonian have seen it hanging there. That's where it is today. Now the Hughes Tool Company, or SUMA, owns title to the Spruce Goose. What are you going to do with it? Incidentally, SUMA is an acronym that shows that Howard Hughes had a sense of humor. What do you suppose SUMMA stands for? Stall until more money arrives. Now, Jack Reel tells us that story with a twinkle in his eye. It may not be true, but it's a good story. Sumo Corporation now owns the thing, and a man by the name of Jack Rather comes into the picture. He made his fortune building hotels for Disney. He's the man that bought the Queen Mary. He bought that and built that Buckminster Fuller geodesic dome and leased this from the Hughes Tool Company and put them together. In 1991, he passed away, and it went up for grabs again. Disney took over the lease. The world's largest entertainment company saw no value in this thing. They didn't want it. They booted it out on the street. They use that dome today as a sound stage for motion pictures. The city of Long Beach didn't want it. They didn't even put a bid in. Queen Mary people didn't want it. They didn't put a bid in. Kermit Weeks did. A zoo in Redwood City, California did. Reno did. Las Vegas did. But this committee that was charged with the stewardship of it, the Aero Club of Southern California, didn't want to see it demeaned. Some of the bids literally were for a wedding chapel, a bowling alley, a water slide. This was not going to happen. Young Michael King Smith, the son of Del Smith, the owner of this company, Evergreen International Airlines, put together a bid and a hardbound book on how he would preserve it for future generations as a learning tool. And the committee voted on it and gave Evergreen the bid. They paid off Disney's lease on the aircraft and dismantled it, put it on barges, and brought it up the Pacific coast. And you know the rest. They came here with a great deal of enthusiasm to build this museum, and a short time later, young Michael was killed in a car accident, and this whole thing went flat. And it occurred to Del, I'm sure, maybe 4 years ago, what a better way to remember his son than to continue with this project in his memory. So more than a home for a national treasure, more than just one more museum full of World War II killing machines, and we'll have about 45 flyable aircraft on display. We have a little higher mission. We are partnering with Embry-Riddle, and we want to put together across the street on the just short of 300 acres over there, a legitimate accredited campus for young people and create careers. We'll have a 2-year apprenticeship program sponsored by Embry-Riddle to teach A&Ps, to take them to their A&P license. We will take young people from ground zero to a private pilot's license on the property. That's the wish for across the street. Where are we? We've been in an incredible hassle with Oregon Department of Transportation about access to our own property. It's been going on for 2.5 years. ODOT wanted us to build a $900,000 frontage road to a non-existent intersection that will be plowed up in year 2002 when they get their master plan. And this nonprofit museum didn't see any sense in it. They finally compromised and said they would issue their paperwork. We got it just a week ago. It's in the city of McMinnville's hands today. And the compromise was an excellent compromise. They said, go ahead and build your presentation, use the existing access road, and we'll review the whole thing in 3 years. That's marvelous, because once we have a $20 million, 200,000 square foot presentation over there, we'll have some leverage. And if they insist on a different frontage approach to it, there's always funds like this immediate opportunity fund from the lotto that we could tap. So that's why it was created, how it got here, and what we're doing with it. These big pink pieces back here are the elevator and the rudder. It was covered in cotton, Irish linen, and it was badly deteriorated when we got it here. We tore that all off in '94 and covered it with Seconite, as some of you know about that, Dacron, and that's ready for paint. The entire aircraft was sprayed with a fire retardant to comply with a California mandate before it went into the dome. And this rubberized sticky stuff, when it gets warm, collects dust. It's kind of nasty looking. So we decided to take it all off and take it down to its original finish the day it flew. It was silver the day it flew. It was aluminized spar varnish, just like you would use on a biplane today, to reflect ultraviolet rays so they wouldn't attack the glue joints. And then it was painted white, and then it was painted with this rubberized stuff. So we've got volunteers out there peeling that stuff off. We can't use chemicals. We can't be blasted because the skin is so thin you can wreck it. That's how thick it is. There is no solid wood in it. Everything is laminated. Every beam, every gusset, every piece of the aircraft is laminated birch. There are some other woods in it, but it's primarily laminated birch. Now, I've talked way too much. I'd rather answer your questions because what you have to talk about is far more interesting. Yes, sir.
You talked about how earlier World War I planes were made with that type. I believe the German Albatross was also made with that kind
The mosquito, British mosquito was made with that process. Yeah. So laminated veneers is not a new concept. It wasn't Hugh's idea. It wasn't Kaiser's idea. But it was never done on a 200-ton airplane before. And would it be practical? And was it? Probably not. Probably not, because it collects so much empty. 17 feet at the wingtips. This is empty. It held 14,000 gallons of fuel. How would you put 750 men in there and fly it up there? I don't know. Yes, sir.
Could you comment on the spar materials of construction?
The spar materials are all laminated, and there's some examples over there. There might be 100, 125 laminations, and every one of them had to be cooked in this autoclave. What came out, and what now, to bring this full cycle, what I was telling this young man from New York on the Discovery Channel, I said, what came out of this is some marvelous things. Towards the end of the project, they found a shorter way to cure this stuff, and it was something we got in all of our kitchens. Microwave. It speeded up to cure this epoxy in 15, 20 minutes. They still didn't have the catalyst. These control surfaces would take 200 times human strength to move them, even with fabric on them. How do you move those surfaces in 1/8 inch increment movements? And when you do, how do you know that you haven't gone to full deflection when you're pulling on the wheel? So Hughes engineers came up with a hydraulic assist system with a built-in induced field. They patented, that's what's used on 747s today. Another thing that's spun out of that program, the fuel system. All the fuel is lined up in 14 1,000-gallon tanks in the keel. As you know, most airplanes have to have wet wings for it to be in balance. It's not going to fly with 14,000 gallons of fuel. It's 6 pounds a gallon sloshing in the belly of this thing. They had to come up with a very sophisticated fuel flow system that moved it from tank to tank to tank to tank to tank to the engines in real-time burn, and it always stayed in CG. That part was complicated. How they determined the CG was extremely elementary. Right at dead point CG in the fuselage, there's a little black box with 2 wing nuts. You open up this little black box, and what's in there is 2 carpenter levels. Just 2 bubbles, and that's how they knew if they had one CG or not. Very simple. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
When they went to assemble all the autoclave
Nope. They all had to be cooked in this big tube submarine. Oh, I see. When they attach it on the plane. No, as far as I know, they didn't have hand-operated microwaves. They nailed it with brads and let it cure. They put 9 tons of brads in this thing and took them all out. 18,000 pounds of nails had to come out of this thing. So the skin on the outside and places where you couldn't put it in the autoclave had to cure naturally. Yeah. And today, 50 years later, it's starting to delaminate. No big surprise, it's crystallizing and coming. So it'd never fly again. That's a question we get often. Would it fly? Not likely. But it'll be okay the rest of its life. It's actually in very good shape. And this coating that I was telling you about has turned out to be a mixed blessing. This nuisance stuff that we got to get off has protected it from the Pacific Northwest moisture. So it's not badly damaged. You see some delamination, but it's not bad. Not bad at all. What else can I tell you? Yes, sir. Parts for the other 2 aircraft were they built. The only parts that were built for the other 2 aircraft was a clamshell nose, and we've got that out here too, and it was never installed on any, it was briefly put on this aircraft and then taken off. And when you see the nose that's on it now, there's no way that they're interchangeable because the stringers and the longerons go clear through. So that part was built, but they had hand-picked birch from the Northeast and tons of it. So Hughes wanted to keep these guys employed. They tried to come up with something to build. They built map cases, aircraft seats, office furniture, and boats. You'll see a little dinghy over here made out of the same material with the Hughes Company logo on the bow. They made 200 or 300 of these little rowboats. And some guy from Wisconsin called us about 6 months ago and said he had one. Wanted to sell it to us for $10,000. I said, well, you're talking to a nonprofit museum that struggles with a t-shirt order. I don't think we can do that. And the same week, by sheer coincidence, a man from Seattle called and he's the owner of one of the very first Rhinell boats that came out after the World War II. And he's got one on the top of his boat that's been there for 35 years. And he wanted to take it off, and would we be interested in taking it if he delivered it? Well, I guess so. That's what that's doing there. But yeah, there weren't any other components. The question was, were there any other components made for these other airplanes? Nah, the first one isn't even finished. He vindicated himself by flying it, but it's hollow inside. There's no place to put 750 men. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was designed to fly in ground effect.
Ah, another part of the puzzle. Yeah, I didn't tell you about. Part of the mandate to Henry Kaiser said, "Oh yeah, by the way, it's not to fly at altitude; it's to fly at ground effect for 3,000 miles nonstop." And as you, as pilots know, ground effect is roughly 50% of your wingspan. A few years ago, we were visited by the Russians in that huge ANT-225 right after Chernobyl, and they put food and clothes in it and so forth. And I went up to Everett to take a look at that thing. It is an incredible thing to stand under. It's so huge. It had the outrageous wingspan of 290 feet. The flying boat is still the biggest airplane, if you use that criteria, in the world. 320 feet, all wood. The wings they're not wet, they're hollow. He had a man behind each engine on that day he flew it because he was not sure that his compressed air throttle system was going to function. So he had manual throttles at each engine and a telephone and a couple of instruments for oil pressure and fuel pressure and a lamp. And a guy at each engine. I don't know how the hell you'd hear anything behind a 4360, even if you need to talk to them. But that's what, there was between 13 and 15 people on board. The books I've collected contradict themselves. They even name the people, and then when you count the names, it doesn't add up. So a lot of misinformation. Yes, sir?
How do you intend to display the aircraft?
There's a model out in the foyer of the building. The building is 200,000 square feet. It's an A-frame, 125 feet at the apex to accommodate the 8-story tail. And I believe what we're going to do is honor the silver color in this building, and it will be completely assembled. The soonest we can move it over there, according to the contractors just yesterday, is that they want everything overhead completed before they move the fuselage in there. They don't want to drop anything on it. The soonest timeline that would be July or August of year 2000. And we'll probably have some kind of an observation deck there where the public that shows up can watch it come back together. As you notice, there's no signs out front. We kind of avoid publicity because we can't handle the crowds, and yet we're open 7 days a week here, and we see between 60 and 80 people a day that just find us. The paradox of this is when we're up and running, we're going to need 800 to 1,000 a day just to keep the lights on. Right now, we don't have a staff to handle it. We're always looking for more volunteers. If any of you live close by, we have volunteers that work on the flying boat. Some like to give tours, some like to run the gift shop, work in the library, work in the shop, restoring shop. We're always looking for more volunteers because there's only a couple of us on staff. We can't handle the crowds yet. We're just not quite ready. We're running as fast as we can. But it's a reality. The contractor wants to start August 1st, and he says he can do it in 20 to 24 months. Airplane and all. Airplane reassembled and built. Yes, sir.
Is there ever any plan to make these Spruce Goose amphibious type aircraft, or was it strictly
Too heavy. The question is, was there ever a plan to make the flying boat an amphibious with wheels on it? It's just so heavy, I don't know if the hull would support it. None of the drawings I have show that. But I did find, we got boxes of stuff we haven't even opened yet, some treasures, because we don't have an archival place to store it yet. I've just seen some teasers. I found some drawings. He wasn't going to give up with this. Even though he never went back and looked at it, he had another concept. He was going to put turbo engines, 6 of them on one, in a 500,000-pound flying boat. But that didn't include any wheels either. He still thought he could do this, and it was not to be made of aluminum. Again, he was going to go with the laminated veneers. Just a concept we found on paper. What else can I think? Yes, sir. We can walk out to the fence. There's no way to get in it. They're stripping lead paint off the floor in the flight deck. it's just too cumbersome even with one or two people. We had a man donate $10,000, William H. Rodis. The people that make this are still in business. They're making boats and office furniture back in Wisconsin. He came out here a couple months ago and donated $10,000, and he didn't get to get in it. There's just no way to get in it. It's covered with scaffolding, and it's dangerous out there. You can walk out to the fence and look at it, but it's just premature. And even when it's in the museum, we haven't got a way to get in it yet. There are plans in the drawings to do like they did at Long Beach, because there's 2 holes cut in the side of it, to step in it and look at it and then step out. But we're going to need somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 325,000 people a year at $8 a head just to keep the lights on in a $20 million project. You run that many people through that thing, you destroy it in 6 months. It's extremely fragile. The times I have been in it, if there's somebody in the tail, you can feel the whole thing move. This 200-ton airplane moves. It's so fragile. Pieces bend, pieces are flaking off. It's extremely fragile. But it'll move one more time across the street, and it'll stay there the rest of its life. Interesting full cycle. Queen Mary people have changed their mind. Long Beach people have changed their mind. They've called us in the last 6 months, offered to buy it back for a lot more. And I said, well, that's really nice. I thought, but I said, can you imagine the embarrassment it would be to send it back? How much money would it take to cover the embarrassment? 50 million? Not a chance. 75? Nah. 100 million? Maybe 150 million would solve and puts a salve on your hurt feelings, but I don't think so. And for that much money, you could build another one. So it's not going anywhere. It's going to go across the street. There are all kinds of rumors that it was going to Las Vegas, that it was going to Panama, that some rich guys in New York were going to take it, that Kermit Weeks was going to come take it and take it around to Panama. We've heard all kinds of stories. It's not going anywhere. It's not going back. They made a mistake. It should have never left there. It should have stayed there. Right in the heart of all those theme parks and everything, it should have stayed there. But nobody wanted it. Nobody saw any value in it. They were going to cut it up. No way. So it's not going anywhere. It's going to stay right here. Any other questions?
How about design features or mechanical features that only way you're developing to real basic?
Some of the, I perceive what you're asking is, what are some of the design features that carried on? One of them was that induced field. They did a lot of studies with the keel and where the step should be. And obviously they found the most efficient spot. If that damn thing lifted off at 70 knots, 200 tons, what a remarkable thing. And it took off flat like a C-130. Something maybe they didn't take in consideration was those 17-foot 4-blade Hammond standard propellers created lift across that airfoil also. So when you lowered the flaps to 15 degrees and you've got those huge pylons with the floats, you created a box. And the prop wash too, so that thing just lifted straight up like this, flat. And so yeah, there were some engineering things. You've seen pictures of the inside of the flight deck. It looks like a 747. This would make a wonderful prototype. This could have been done in aluminum, but the war was over. There was no need for this. They wanted to bail on the contract. Yes, sir.
It'd be interesting to find out what the wing setup is on this versus the Martin flying jet, flying boat jet.
Flying boat, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As I mentioned before, there was a relationship there. Kaiser offered to build, that's an outrageous number, isn't it? 5,000 Martin Mars? How could you do that? Well, he was going to mass produce them somehow, just like he was doing the carrier ship.
Jet flying boat.
By Martin?
By Martin. That the General Monet is the one that fucking hold that one because he wanted to have the main.
Was a prototype ever made?
The prototype was made before. And in fact, the test pilot invited General Monet to take a ride with him. He wouldn't.
You wouldn't go?
He wanted to know what he was like.
Yes, sir.
Can you give us some background on your Spitfire and your 109?
I can.
Before we do that,
Yes, sir.
one more question on the Spruce Goose. Did the contract get paid?
Which contract? Oh, did Hughes get his money? Yeah, he got his money, and he felt vindicated. But he put far more money than the U.S. government ever did. Yeah. And then he went on to he had other passions. He made no less than 65 motion pictures. I don't mean he financed them, he made them. He directed them, he wrote them, and so forth. He was involved in that Glomar thing. He was involved in satellites. He was involved in ships, submarines, gambling casinos.
You changed your mind of this guy to Discovery Channel?
Thanks for asking. No, I didn't, because this kid was definitely looking for something negative to say in this thing, and I wasn't supporting. I said, you know what? You're talking to the wrong guy. I'll tell you what I'll do. Let me give you a phone number of a guy that worked for Howard Hughes and was there, and he could answer your questions better than I can. So I gave him the name of Dave Grant. Dave Grant was the hydraulics engineer that sat in the right seat the day it flew. He'll eat him alive. I got him off my phone. I haven't heard from him since. So if you see something on the Discovery Channel about the 10 world's worst disasters of the 20th century, you'll know some background about it. Yes, sir.
What did Kaiser build in the LA, down there, big aviation super factory with, camouflage over the top of it and everything back in the day? And where did Howard take the project?
Howard was involved in the project right from the beginning. And I don't know what Kaiser was building down there. He was building ships over here. And so I'm not aware of Henry Kaiser building anything down there.
Big aircraft.
Aircraft?
My dad transferred from
Kaiser?
Yeah,
Kaiser.
transferred from the Vancouver operation to the.
Now that's
LA
something I don't know about, because Kaiser was building those Liberty ships in two places, here at Vancouver, Washington, and at Fremont, California. But I didn't know he was in aircraft. Long Beach. Yeah. Well, Hughes had a huge plant there. Yeah. Well, he started that plant and he built this building for this to build that down there at Culver City, and then moved to Long Beach. And that was under camouflage. Yes. Sir.
How about reversing? Do you reverse all of these?
Good question. Can we reverse the engines? That DX-11 up there, that twin boom airplane that looks like a P-38, was 10 years ahead of Lockheed's Lightning. And it was a high altitude photo reconnaissance spy plane. And Hughes was often credited, said that he didn't see any sense in letting somebody else have all the fun when it came to test flying, even though he wasn't trained as a test pilot. So on the very first flight, he took that thing up, and it nearly killed him. One of 13 or 14 serious crashes he had. He got that thing airborne, and the starboard engine, it had twin contra-rotating propellers. The starboard set of blades, rear set of blades, lost oil pressure and flattened out, and actually reversed. Pulled him out of the sky in a spiral, and he hit a house in Hollywood and exploded. He was on fire. He had a dislocated heart, broken arms and broken legs, and an off-duty Marine pulled him out of the fire not knowing who he was. They kept him alive for 5 or 6 weeks with injections of morphine, and this was the beginning of the truth that he was addicted to painkillers all of his life. But it was a serious accident. He did build a second one with a single set of blades, and because the government horsed him around a little bit, something mysterious happened to the hangar. A bolt of lightning hit it, and it burned up. God acts in mysterious ways, and Hughes was not going to share his airplane with him. I got sidetracked there. What was the original question about that? Oh, the propellers. So, yeah, that relates to the propellers. He was so upset with Hamilton Standard that when he put these four-blade props on this 4360, he made sure that they wired them so that they could not be flattened out or reversed. He thought that might be something handy to have at the beginning, because to be able to back this thing up or to maneuver it. But he was so upset with them, he had them, I know wiring is not the correct word, but he fixed it somehow, the gears, so they could not flatten out or reverse. He was adamant about that. He didn't want to have that accident happen again. Because can you imagine these 3,000 horsepower engine, just firing one of them up to idle, that big seaplane would drift. So what sequence would you start in? Outboard or inboard first? And of course they had huge hooks on it. They were like a home built, a garage door opener thing that I've used on a Pitts before. You keep it tied down while you got it running, and then when you get in, you pull the lever and let it go. Well, there's a huge tail hook on this thing for that same purpose, so it wouldn't drift while it's idle. Back to the planes that are in here momentarily. The Spitfire is a Mark 16 with a Rolls-Royce Merlin in it, and it actually does have World War II history. It's got 4 kills and 2 trains. And you've all seen those weekday wings pictures like I have, how much fun it must have been to hit trains. That was purchased out of an auction, and Michael flew that often. The ME-109 was one of two that came out of Yugoslavia and was in storage in England for a long time. It came to a United States collector in Texas for a long time, back to Europe in pieces, and they bought the parts and gave the parts to a man by the name of Darrell Scourge in Fort Collins, Colorado. He slowly, over a 5-year period, put one back together with all authentic parts. Daimler-Benz rebuilt the engine. They ran it up on videotape for us, and they've got just short of $5 million in that restoration. It's $375,000 in the propeller alone. The engine runs, it's pristine. They sent the engine here, we assemble it right here. We masked this off with plastic and sprayed it in this room. So that aircraft is like, it's like getting a Ferrari in a box that nobody's touched. It's totally pristine because it wasn't finished before Michael lost his life. Now it's a sacred cow and nobody's even sat in it. And it would be my best wish to take it outside and just at least hear it. It'll probably never run. There's no battery in it. And it's sitting there deteriorating as we speak, which is kind of a shame. I used to pull the prop through. It takes two people to pull the prop through. There's no point. It's never going to run. It's never going to fly. A sister ship in England, Black 6, you remember reading an EA magazine that went down almost 2 years now. Broke the spine on that one. They're rebuilding it again, but it'll be a static display. So, as far as the ME-109 G10 Gustav, this may be the very last one of the original equipment in the world in McMinnville. Germany doesn't even have one. You'll see some ME-109s fly from time to time, like Chinos and so forth, but they'll have, that's the Spanish version, and they'll either have an Allison or a Rolls-Royce Merlin. So, actually an authentic one of 34,000 that were made, that may be the last one. It's a real treasure.
There are no flying Daimler-powered 109s in the world.
Not that I'm aware of. I think even Chinos has either the Allison or the Merlin in it. It's got all the guns in it, the original instruments, the 30mm cannon through the nose. That's painted in Eric Hartman's paint scheme, and that was Michael's wish. Eric Hartman never flew that airplane, the Blonde Knight. Again, I know you guys watch those weekday wings like I do. You probably got them memorized. I hear it in the other room, and I go in there and say, oh yeah, the ME-262, I seen that one. Yeah, that's pretty neat, yeah. Eric Hartman was the highest scoring ace of all time. Anybody remember that number? I bet somebody does. 353, it's actually 352, you're right. 352, exactly. And of course you need to know that most of that career was over the Russian front, and he was shooting down antiquated...
Soviet front.
Soviet front, that's right.
There were Russians on the German side.
Exactly, and he was shooting down antiquated biplanes. So it's sort of like sending an F-15 out after a Piper Cub. He was knocking down 6-8 a day. That red heart on the fuselage is Ush, is short for Ursula, and that was Eric's wife. He missed her so much. Actually, some of the depictions on some of his airplanes show a heart, show an arrow through it, and it's bleeding. It was just to remember his wife. Eric Hartman had 1,400 missions, 800 confrontations, and 352 kills. He spent 10 years illegally in a Russian prison. Soviet prison. Thank you. There's a big difference.
It's not a Russian invention, but it's a Soviet invention.
That's right. There's a big difference, isn't there?
That's quite a
And
difference.
he came to this country to die of old age and retire in this country. But again, it's a shame we can't even hear it run. It's just too precious, too valuable. And the second one we had, we pieced together and gave it to the Air Force at Dayton, Ohio, and they put a dummy engine in it. It's on display now also. Another 109. Took two parts. But they just can't find a Daimler-Benz engine. They're so corroded. 60 years later, you can't even rebuild the pieces. They were used for, like Rolls-Royce and Allison, on race boats and lots of things, but they're just not available. Race cars. Yes, sir. I'm sure it's inflated, about 5 million. Who knows? You know, if it's the last one and it really is all that authentic, nobody could write. You know, a good analogy. It's like owning a diamond the size of a potato. Nobody could afford it, and you wouldn't sell it.
I did see an Aero Trader several years ago. Spano
Yes.
109
Yes.
for sale for about 800,000.
Yeah, that'd be a bargain, because it would be something. It was a tricky airplane to fly. That landing gear was very awkward. The reason for that landing gear like that, it was designed to fly off of dirt fields, and they felt that a retractable gear out in the main spar would be too jarring to the main spar. So that's actually attached to the main frame of the fuselage. That's why it looks so awkward and folds up this way. But it was a ground looper. It was a dangerous thing to land, and very bad visibility. That canopy is steel, and it's very heavy. If you flip that thing on its back, you might as well just fry in it, because there's no getting out of it. It takes both hands just to lift the canopy now. Very little armor. That's all the armor there is what's behind your head and that very thick, resistant glass. Any other questions? This plane right behind you is quite unique. It's a Curtiss Falcon. It was owned by Casey Lambert. He and his wife toured the United States in the late 30s in that thing. He owned a pharmaceutical company. They made aspirin. Actually, that was his second custom-made one by Curtiss. The first one burnt up. An engine fire. The Navy had a few like that. They called them SNC-1s. Pensacola has one on static display, but the engine is all rusted up. It's a Wright Whirlwind 440. And the only other one that's left on the planet is an earlier model called an A-19. It's owned by Don Carter in Shelbyville. It's that one with the cuffs on it. It doesn't retract. Some of you might have saw it at Oshkosh a couple of years ago. A real estate lady rescued it out of what? Bolivia? And it's been restored to flying condition. I just saw it last weekend. It sounds wonderful to hear it fly. It's exactly like this, same engine, same prop, same everything, except the gear is fixed and has cuffs on it. And the tires do retract a little bit in the cuffs. You're still visible, but they retract about halfway up in the cuff.
Who has it now?
Don Carter of Shelbyville. He owns a Bucher Youngmeister, a Ryan STA, a 195. Let's get some nice toys over here. Pardon me?
Where's Shelbyville?
Shelbyville is a nest of the most wonderful EAA aircraft in Northern California. It's by Sears Point Raceway in northern Marin County. Nevada, exactly. It's how would you put it in relation?
Shelbyville is not actually the name of the airport. It's
Exactly.
called whatever that county is.
Exactly. Shelbyville is a non-existent town. It's a truck stop, or not even that, a restaurant.
Marin County?
Marin County, but you know, have you seen the Sears Point Raceway out there in the? No, it's a half a mile from the Sears Point Raceway. It's west of Napa. Yeah, it's about I'd say 15 miles west of Napa on your charts. A wonderful little strip and full of incredible PV2s, Ryans, Kinner, Fleets, PT22s. There's some great stuff out there. Wonderful treasure. Pit specials, dozens of it. What else can I tell you? Yes, sir.
What about the F-102 you have out there?
That came from OMSI, Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. It sat out in the rain for years, and when they moved their new location downtown Portland in '92, they just left it up there at the zoo, along with the C-47. Those of you that have had a chance to step outside, we've got the C-47 out in back that we're restoring also. The Air Guard delivered it for us. We had to go over and get this one, the C-47 ourselves, take it apart with cranes and bring it out here. It'll never fly. There's a lot of missing parts on it, but it has some D-Day history. It flew June 4th, 1944, twice to Normandy. One with a load of paratroops, and the second trip with a load of paratroops and towed gliders. I didn't know that they did both. And one of the guys that jumped from the C-47 on that day in that unit, in that flight, was here just yesterday.
That's 101st?
101st, and he verified that, yes, they not only carried paratroops, but pulled a glider too. That's pretty remarkable. He left me a big 10 by 12 picture of that day, all these parachutes coming out of it. So we'll honor its history. We have a flyable DC-3 in our collection, which is United Airlines mainliner, Reno. It's in restoration right now, so we don't need two flyable. This one will be we'll put a ladder in and let kids climb in it.
But you're not going to restore the 102?
No, we won't be restoring these. These will be static displays across the street on brick pads. The T-33 came from the Oregon Guard. We're going to try to honor every aircraft the Oregon Guard ever flew. Try to find every one of them. We've got a Voodoo coming, a Scorpion, F-4 Phantom. Oh, Pardon me? I haven't got a track on a 106 yet, but that'd be fun. Yeah, we should have a 106. Pardon me? The Scorpion is coming from Stockton, California. And they're coming out next Thursday with pictures of it. That is the Oregon Air Guard, to tell us how they're going to move it. It's one of those stories we always hear about. Some fellow buys the parts, gives it to a restoration firm. Restoration firm runs out of money and leaves town, and this guy's stuck with an unfinished project, and he doesn't want to finish it, and so he's going to donate it to us, and the Oregon Air Guard will paint it in their colors for us. But it's got to be dismantled and trucked up here in 2 trucks.
Scorpion, that's the Norfolk F-89.
F-89 and what, the Voodoo's a 101?
101.
Yeah, good memory. The 2 MiGs were purchased at an auction. One of them was flyable, the one that's facing away. The reason it's facing away is while it was being ferried here from Marana, it stopped for fuel in Arizona someplace, and that airplane has a reputation, if you come too far back on the throttle, it unspools and you can't get it back up, and it was on final approach and didn't quite make the runway and stuffed the nose in the dirt. And so you're welcome to walk around the rope and look at the front end. The whole front end's crushed. It'll never fly again. We'll patch it up and make a display out of it. And the T-38 Talon, that's also the Guard got that for us. Yes, sir.
What kind of tank is that?
You know, I don't know anything about these tanks. I've got a listing of them. I have no passion for tanks, and I don't know anything about them. I think this is, no, I shouldn't even say because I don't know. I know that's amphibious. There was a time we marketed 6 or 8 of them to movies and television. When the boys were kids, they bought these things at different places, and these boys lived kind of a charmed life. You've probably heard about that. When these boys played Army, they went out and chased each other, blow up trees with these things. They had a lot of fun. Mark Smith went the way of automobiles. That's what all these race cars are doing in here. We got into the Indy show one year, and you know how that game is played. For qualification, they take it right up to a Friday night at 5 o'clock, and they shoot off a cannon. Well, if you've got a hotter car by a couple of seconds and you want to bump the last guy on the show, you wait till 5 minutes to 5 and go out and qualify, and you bump the last guy. So there's no shame in being bumped by Johnny Rutherford. Mark was briefly in the show, got bumped by Johnny Rutherford. I tell teenagers when they look at that, I said, you know, for $1 million, you think you get white walls and a radio with them. You don't even get an engine. There's no engine in that. If you're going to drive the circuit, you're going to go through 12 to 15 engines a year. There's $1 million Penske car there, nothing in it. What do you do with something like that? You park it there. What else is in here? These 2 helicopters were Dell's first helicopters. One Hiller and one Hughes. He bought them with borrowed money 38 years ago and started this company. And 38 years later, he's taken it to a $2 billion company, an international airline, the world's largest collection of 747 and DC-9s. They fly government contracts, mail, FedEx. They fly no passengers, but they take on opportunistic contracts. Toxic waste, animals, French fries to Zimbabwe, whatever. But they take on the odd thing. That's why you're sitting in these seats. They have daily meetings. This is the company's conference room. And they took the... Some of you might notice they're a little bit narrow. Look on the back of the seat. See the Japanese writing? These are Japanese airliners. I guess Japanese don't have any butts, so they can get 6 or 7 more seats in a plane. They can make $34 more a flight or something.
Where does the fleet go?
They don't have any either.
No. Pardon me?
Where does the fleet go?
Well, we never see the fleet. You're sitting in the headquarters of something like United or American Airlines. We never see our airplane. We never have. They're within 200 miles of us. They don't even land at PDX. This is the international airline headquarters, but we never see our airplanes. They're either working or they're in maintenance at Marana, Arizona. Marana's. And they do B checks and C checks down there for other airlines and paint schemes and polish jobs. That's another part of this business. They're also into farming. They have 8,000 acres of farms out here. Hazelnuts, Christmas trees, lawn seed, flowers, and so forth. It's a very diversified company. Trucking, real estate. The museum is totally separate, nonprofit, IRS, 501c3, and all done by donations. No government money, no tax money, no city money, no county, no state. It's all donations. Yes, sir.
What other aircraft do you have under restoration
Right now, only the DC-3. We've kind of curtailed paying for aircraft so we can get on with our building project. I'm sure there'll be a time when we acquire aircraft again. And when you're a nonprofit, you're offered airplanes all the time. You have to actually decide whether you want to take them or not, because it can be a big liability. What's in storage is a B-17G, Ford Trimotor, T-28, T-6, a P-38, a P-40, TBM, Corsair, P-51. This is all in storage in Portland in a hangar that we're semi-guests in and our own employees can't get in.
Those will be in the facility or whatever.
They'll all be here. We'll have at least 45 or 50 flyable aircraft on display across the street. And I anticipate your next question. If you take them across the street, how the hell are you going to fly them? Yeah, my best wishes, we just talked about this yesterday. We're looking at about a 3,000-foot compacted turf runway for fly-ins, for EAA fly-ins and that sort of thing. We won't be able to get the 17 in and out of there probably, but just about anything else that we fly in. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that day. The question was, he saw someplace in the press some time ago that we were in line for an SR-71. Yes, we are. Our name is on a ship, even though they're recommissioning these things now, not to look down, but to look up. And so they're robbing parts from the ones that they do have for looking at celestial navigation and so forth. We have our name on one, but you have to have a building. They don't want it to sit outside. And the last I heard, we were still on the list, and they were going to deliver it to PDX, and it'll be demilitarized there and then dismantled and trucked out here. Yes, sir?
There's one outside.
That's one example that has one outside. You're quite right. But they told us we couldn't have one unless we had a building. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. That would be something we should take advantage of. That's such a, those of you that have seen the one up at Seattle at the Museum of Flight, it's stunning to stand underneath that thing. Yes, sir.
What's the company philosophy of flyable machines and the danger of losing one versus static machines?
What's the company's philosophy about flyable machines and losing these treasures? It's a mixed philosophy. That has turned into a sacred cow probably won't fly. Although we have 10 right now that are flyable. But we're not flying them for air shows and movies and television because we want to throw all of our capital at this project that we're involved in right now. It's not profitable to fly them, but we want to share these things. We want to keep them alive and want to keep them flyable. The last time we booked air shows was 3 years ago. We booked 19 presentations for a rough income of about $120,000 plus concession rights to sell caps and t-shirts and so forth. And our budget for repairs that year was $890,000. So you see we're going backwards here. And with just a little bit of exaggeration, I tell people that call up and request these things for some Kiwanis charity, I said, it cost approximately $10,000 to pull the B-17 out of the hangar. To insure it, we have to pull pilots off of the 747 line that are qualified to fly it and so forth. It's a big hassle. So we put them aside temporarily. However, just this morning I got approval to play with them again. We do keep our Bull Stearman out here that was owned by an astronaut. I just spaced it. What's his name? The guy with the Air Cobra and the two-seat? Borman. Thank you. Frank Borman owned the 450 Stearman that I've got out there. We do VIP rides in it and take our volunteers up there and so forth. I just got approval to take the Trimotor to the Evergreen fly-in on the 22nd over at Vancouver. We haven't participated in that in years, and we thought it'd be fun to take something really neat to put in front of Wally's hangar over there. Yes, sir.
Up at Rose's Island, east side, astronaut Bill Anders, General Anders.
Yes.
I believe that's what he called. He had the Hal Val for 51.
Is it Landers?
Anders.
Anders. Oh, yeah. Because you remember Landers was the pilot of Big Beautiful Doll, right? with the checkered nose, but I don't know that name.
Anders flew with Borman on Apollo 8.
Oh, Anders flew with Borman. There's the connection. I see. Yeah.
They were the same.
Well, you'd be amused by this Stearman. It reeks of testosterone. He spent way too much money on it. It's a beautiful paint scheme, a Pratt & Whitney 450, polished end struts, leather seats, smoke system, tail hook for pulling banners, and way too many switches. It looks like an EAA biplane that a guy's gone nuts with. There's so many. It looks real. It looks like the space shuttle in there. It looks real important. But it's great fun to fly. Yes, sir. I just fly the biplanes. My interest is when engines were round and women were scared. The jets are for kids, and I'm not qualified to. I suppose I could. So could you. I would think about it. These were 18-year-old scared kids. We could do that. We could do that. Pardon me? Yes, I was the director of Pearson before I came here. Before I met Michael. Yeah. Thanks for remembering. Anything else I can tell you? I've taken up a lot of your time.
Another philosophy. What
Yes,
is
sir?
your philosophy of what you're doing versus the Pearson Museum's philosophy?
The question was, what is my philosophy compared to what we were doing at Pearson? That's the era I'm really interested in, is that classic era. GBs and Ryans and biplanes, that thrills me. Warbirds don't mean that much to me because I was too young for Korea and too old for Vietnam. I fell through the cracks. I don't know a private or a general. I don't know anything about the military. Although I collect all this stuff. I've probably got 3,000 books in my collection like you do. And I love reading about the stuff, but I don't relate to the killing machines. I would like to see this museum have more classic aircraft when we get in that new building. And I would like to mix period automobiles with classic aircraft. The American public understand cars better than they do aircraft, because that's what we see all the time. So this airplane is so pretty, it doesn't look like it's 60 years old. So you put a split window 39 Ford with that and a couple of striped suitcases, you got a feel for the period. Put an MGTC with that Spitfire, an antique Mercedes with that Spitfire, Ferrari with the Pitts. What would you put with the Cub? I don't know. Model T, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I'd like to mix cars with airplanes. That's my interest, and I'm real proud of what they did over there. That's a wonderful little presentation. I hope that we can do both here. Yes, sir.
I noticed, like you were saying, a lot of these museums have warplanes and classics, but I haven't really heard of any museums that specialize in classic GA planes, like the 1947 Bonanza or something like that.
I think you're right. The question was, he hasn't seen very many museums address themselves to classic general aviation aircraft. I think we'll start to see that. 170Bs are now starting to be something really clever, great to see. A 120, a 140. Yeah, I think we'll see more and more of that. Classic Beechcraft, yeah. I think we will see more and more because, again, as I said about these warbirds, are getting so expensive, it's impractical. Another 2 generations of kids are only going to see them in museums. There's only 12 B-17s flying in the world now. If you lose one, my personal philosophy, it has nothing to do with what the boss wants to do here, but I say fly them and fix them, and fly them and fix them. I had a birthday party in Chico, California just last Saturday, and we sent out a chain letter. My brother sent out a chain letter and invited a bunch of my friends from Pacific Northwest, and we had one heck of a party. And people brought out old cars and motorcycles and go-karts and RC airplanes. We had 5 Stearman, we had a Travel 4000, a couple of Ryans, and that Curtiss of Dawn showed up. And it showed up about 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, that golden light, and it made this wonderful rumbling sound overhead, and came in a flight with a couple of Ryans from Shellville, and the young people got out, young, healthy, 25, 30-year-old kids with pretty girlfriends and these gorgeous airplanes, and I'm just standing there looking at that stuff, and the wonderful lady in my life came up to me and she says, "How do you feel about that? Does that make you kind of jealous?" And I said, "Yeah, you know what? For a millisecond, I was jealous. But I said, you know what? That's the kind of people we want to pass this on to. We want young, healthy, good-looking kids that have a passion for flying these things. I'm going to take care of these Ryans and these Fleet 16Bs and these Curtises. Yeah, you bet we do. That's the kind of, we don't want kids out there with pierced tongues and spiked hair, and just because they make $200 million with Microsoft and buy them, put them in their garage. Let's use them, let's break them, let's fix them, let's fly them, let's use them. You can always fix them. Fly them. Get them out and fly them. Let's hear them, let's smell them, let's roll our face in them. So yeah, I was proud of these guys. These kids look great. They, it reminds you of yourselves 20 years ago. These kids getting out of these Ryans and these biplanes. They look great. Yeah, I was jealous for not that long, but not very long. Well, maybe it was about longer than 20 years. I've taken a lot of your time. You're welcome to stay as long as you want. There's no limit on what you can spend in the gift shop. I think somebody already told you that. And if you need restrooms, you're up the steps and to the left. There's a drinking fountain out there. You're welcome to walk out by the fence, peek at the flying boat. Pretty soon we'll have a ladder up to that C-47, but not quite ready yet, so you can climb in that. Yes, sir.
Do you know what country was the last one to use the ME-109 in combat?
What country was the last country to use the ME-109 in combat?
Israel. It was not Germany.
Was it Israel?
Israel.
Ah! How'd you know that?
With their wings.
There you go. I didn't know that one.
But they have the Jumo engines instead of the Daimler Benz.
Sure.
They got them from Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
During the interim between the two parts of the war in 1948.
Sure. What's your schedule? Where are you going from here? Home. Oh, this was it? This was your day? Well, take your time. Stay as long as you like.
Who's flying it now?
Penn Store still. The Penn Store, S-T-O-H-R. He's going to pilot all. His father flew them. He's from Missoula. He came with the aircraft. That trimotor has an interesting history. It went to South America, and the Mexicans took all the skin off of it and put flat skin on it. And it came back into this country, and the FAA wouldn't certify it because that corrugated skin is its strength. So it sat in the field and rotted for several years, and Harrah's picked it up for nothing, and they built all brand new skin for it and restored it from the bottom up. So it's a gorgeous thing. When's the next time? Well, the next time you probably see it if you go over to Evergreen's Fly-In. We just got approval, like I say, to fly it over. And we're also going to participate in Hood River's Fly-In. We're going to take a P-51 over there in, is it September? Does anybody know? I think it's September that Hood River has their Fly-In. They're honoring the Tuskegee Airmen.
The trimotor, since that didn't handle the advanced hydraulic boost and everything, if anybody fly that, they have like Schwarzenegger arms to maneuver it.
Yes, it's difficult to fly the trimotor because there's no boost on it at all. And it only flies about 105 miles an hour. It could take you 3 days to get across the United States. The trimotor was the beginning of stewards, young men that would carry the luggage. And that's where the term stewardess came from. They hired nurses to be on board to dispense liquor because these things were so noisy and bumpy that people got sick, and the liquor seemed to calm people down.
Hood River fly in September 24th and 25th, according to what I've got in the calendar.
I think you're almost right on. Yeah, that's kind of fun. They usually have about 100 aircraft show up. It's a lot of fun. It's a pretty day. And pardon me? Is there you mean, oh, you're talking about, what's his name? With all the, I know what you're talking about. It's a private collection. I doubt that he'd open it up to that. He's spending more time in Alaska now. It'll come to me. But he's got some great stuff. Oh man, has he got a collection of engines. He's got an N3N on floats. And he's got an original Curtis Pusher. He's got some real treasure stuff.
Sort of depends on his mindset.
Exactly. It's like all of us. Some days you feel like showing your toys to everybody. Some days you don't want to touch your toys. Thanks for coming to see us. And I'll be as long as you like, and I'll answer your questions individually when you're through.
Like Gary said, his organization, like ours, is nonprofit. I know he'd probably appreciate if we drop something in the donation kitty over there sometime during the trip.
I got the key.
And I hope everyone's enjoyed this. Those of you who have flown in, I'd be glad to give you rides back to the tie down when you're interested. Just call me and I'll go back and forth as many times as it takes.
And so everybody enjoy.